arguments of the Phaedo. Yeah. And then I want to explain also to you why this argument is of interest to me. Because one of the things that I keep saying is that the works of Plato are interesting to me anyway, not only for their historical interest, which is considerable. I keep mentioning, for example, that we're looking at some of the foundations both of science and of the European religious tradition, the Christian tradition, when we look at Plato. But there are also metaphysical arguments here that I find interesting for reasons of my own, so I want to give you the argument and then talk a little bit about why it's an argument that's interesting to me. So Socrates is talking about the forms. We were talking about the forms a little bit last time. And then Simmias and Cebes, who are these two kind of students from out of the city, are sort of talking to each other in the back and kind of whispering to each other. And Socrates says, "Hey, you guys, what are you guys talking about?" He says, "Well, we still have some doubts, Socrates." They start to explain this at 86a. Doubts. The one I'm going to, Simmias gives an argument, Cebes gives an argument. The argument of Simmias is this. Perhaps soul is in attunement of the body. So in that case, notice soul is something different from the body, but since if soul depends on the attunement of the body, then if the body loses its attunement or gets out of its physical state, then soul will cease to exist. Cebes, I'm not going to talk about this argument today. Cebes has a story about a coat. It says, the old tailor dies, his last coat survives. So the argument there is, although the soul may be going through multiple lives, because they both are satisfied, or they say they're both satisfied with Socrates' argument, the doctrine of recollection that we were talking about, such that he thinks he can show that the soul must have existed in a prior life. And Cebes says, well, that's okay, but just because the coats are more mortal or die more quickly than their owners, people, it doesn't mean that souls never die. I mean, maybe a soul might go through a whole bunch of bodies and lives, but at the end, the soul might still die. You won't worry about that one so much today. I want to talk to you about this argument about attunement. Because notice how sophisticated their arguments are. That is, they're saying, well, okay, so soul, or think of mind. Remember, thinking about here the mind-body problem. That is the physics, mind-body relationship. And so Simmias is a kind of materialist, but again, notice he's got a very sophisticated view here. He says, I'm not claiming that what the mind is just is the body. The mind sort of emerges from the body, but the mind is an attunement of the body. So let's talk about that some more. We've got, say, the instrument. I'm not very good at doing these instruments. Let's make it. Okay, so you've got the instrument, And the instrument has these physical properties such that you get so that's the idea. Okay, so the idea is, look, Socrates, sure, the music is something different from the physical object that's producing it, but it's because of the physical properties of the object that the music is produced. So again, he's some kind of a materialist. And this argument now that I'm going to show you is, as far as I know, I think this is the best argument against materialism about the mind and the body. And by the way, I myself am pretty hardcore physicalist. That is, my project certainly is to try and show, and I've said to you before, I don't do ghosts and goblins, I don't do angels and demons. I believe in evolutionary biology. I think when you die, you're dead. I'm a pretty hardcore materialist or physicalist person. But since that's my particular interest, one of my special interests is the metaphysics of the relationship between the mind and the body, or sometimes we call that philosophy of mind, then it is also my interest to find arguments, the arguments for and against the two sides. So actually, although I consider myself to be a physicalist about psychology, the logos of the psyche, the metaphysics of the mind, I'm going to explain to you today what I take to be really the best argument for dualism that's there, that I know of anyway. All right, so we see Simonides' position, and he said to Socrates, look. And so it's going to be like that with the mind and the body, right? So, in the same way that the music isn't identical to the physical object, it's because of the properties that the physical object has that it creates the music. So the mind is not identical to the physical body. I'm just representing that with this little picture of a brain here. But it's because of the physical properties of the body that you get the mind or the soul. Remember when they're talking about soul, they're talking about soul or mind, more generally, the Greek word psyche. So that's the argument. Socrates has to defeat that argument. Socrates has to show how that argument is incorrect. I think that Socrates does this. And I'll show you how. So, now, you've got this piece of music, and you can play it on the guitar. Notice something, it looks like you also maybe play the music on a piano. That might be able to play that music. Or you might be able to play the music on a, I don't know what, how about a saxophone? That'll play the music. Or any number of other kinds of instruments. In other words, it looks like the same music can be played on multiple physical objects. And so notice also, you could still invent other kinds of instruments, and there are lots of other instruments that you can play the music on. So think about the set of all of the instruments that could play that music. And it looks like that set is indefinitely large. Sort of fancy phrase for this, you say that it's, the music is multiply realizable. Or another word that means the same thing as supervenient, but don't worry about that. That is, it looks like lots of different things could play that music. Now, when an instrument maker makes the instrument. Notice that if the music was something that just came out of the particular properties of the particular musical instrument, then the instrument maker wouldn't have to pay that much attention to the properties of the instrument that they were making. Now, let me put it this way. These physical things must have the right kinds of properties to get to this music. This music, this tune, this harmony, let's say, he would like the word harmony. This harmony is something that is latent in the world. Lots of things in the world could manifest this harmony. But if you're going to make something, if you're going to make a violin or a guitar or a piano or a saxophone, you've got to make it in the right way. That is, you can't make it any way you want. You've got to make it so that it has those harmonic qualities. In other words, just the idea here is that the causal relation is from the harmony to the physical instrument. The instrument maker has got to make an instrument that is harmonious. The instrument, the physical body of the instrument, has to obey the laws of harmony. It's not the other way around. It's not as if the harmony, it's not as if you just take any physical object and sort of bang it or pluck it or try and play it somehow and just see what kind of music comes out of it. You don't do that. You don't take a piece of wood or an old tire or a fork or something and just start banging it or hitting it and see what kind of sound comes out of it. No, you know what kind of sound you want. You want a harmonious sound, you want a scale, you want to play octaves, you want to play chords. You know the musical principles, the harmonious principles that you need, and then you have to work the wood, cut the wood, bend the metal, pull the strings, do the things that you have to do so that these instruments get into harmony. So the notes and the chords are sort of already there. They're sort of already there. And so the goal of the music maker is to make a physical object that can express the music. So one more time, and I'll ask you some questions, see if you get this, that it's the properties of harmony that is causing the music maker, the instrument maker, to make these physical objects the way that they are. So the physical objects have their physical properties because they have to have those physical properties in order to be harmonious, the way they have to be to play the music. Do you see what I mean? And you see how then that's flipping Simmias's argument around. Simmias said, Socrates, maybe soul is just an attunement of the body. So the body is some kind of particular attunement, and that means when the body disappears, then soul will disappear as well. Because soul just depends on the body being the way that it is. But it turns out it's the other way around. It turns out that in this case, the case of the musical instrument, it turns out that the body is what it is. It has to be that way just because harmony already is what it is. Questions about that? I'm sure you would guess.
Okay. So if we apply that to mind's body,
Yeah.
you're telling me that the harmony is like it's a universal harmony that exists.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that the mind, the intelligence, the memory is a universal thing that we just happen to have a little bit of. Every person just has a little bit of, but it's a bigger picture like mind. Then the body is, the soul is not dependent on the body. Then the mind will just be out there, and the body is the one that is dependent due to the soul.
Yeah, that's right. Everything that you're saying in the form of a question sounds to me correct.